All right, everybody, welcome back to another Corona Geek here, where we talk all about mobile, desktop, and connected TV app development using Corona SDK. The list just gets longer and longer each time we add a new platform. But today we're going to be educated about Spine and the use of message. Noah has joined us from ReedChunky Apps, based in New York, right, Noah?
Yes.
Yeah, coming to us from the great state of New York. And he's going to share some work that he's been doing with Spine, meshes. We're also going to talk about some of the interesting things that came out of WWDC, namely the removal of Game Center app, the addition of search ads, which I find like the biggest topic and very fascinated by. Also, the fact that the Siri remote doesn't seem to be required anymore, which I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. And then there's a whole host of other things that we can kind of throw in there, sprinkle in there as well. So so thanks for joining us. We've got a great crew today. We've got Dr. Brian Burton from down in Abilene. We've got Ed Marina from Portland. We've got Mike Hempling from who knows where. And then we got Stephen Johnson from down in Mexico. So thanks for joining us, guys. Before we get too far into it, I do want to make a couple announcements. One is that Corona Ads is now available. I don't know if you guys have seen that announcement on the blog, but it's true. So Corona Ads. We've been looking forward to that for a while. It's it's been in beta and now it is live. So one of the great things about that is that it's one line of code. It's just drop dead simple. That's the whole idea, is just to make it as effortless as possible. Right now it does banners and interstitials.
Charles,
Yeah.
I was one of the beta testers for Corona Ads, and I've got my first app coming out using Corona Ads, be out here in the next week or two. Very excited about it. Great. Even on the testing, we're seeing great potential return on the financial side. It's the monetize at Corona is showing great statistics on everything. So if you haven't checked it out, it is very easy to implement, easier than all the other tools that I've used in the past for ads. So if you haven't done it, do it. It's worth it, and great return on the ads.
Well, there you go. Thank you for that. That's good feedback. I think one of the things that we've seen in the last 6 months is now there are a ton of monetization options with a bunch of different plugins, and sometimes I think it can be a little overwhelming to know where to start. So hopefully, with Corona Ads coming out of beta and going forward, it can begin to kind of simplify that conversation, because it seems like that's one of the main things that developers want to know, really, even before they get started, is, how am I going to monetize this? How hard is it going to be? What types of options do I have, and stuff like that. So,
right.
Yeah.
I'm working on a tutorial now that will soon be posted, so to show how easy it is. But it really is just a couple lines of code, and you're ready to go. And I'll include my ad code in case somebody wants to include it on their app and make me extra money.
All right. Well, speaking of ads, iAds, I don't know if you guys saw that. Again, we have an announcement on the blog, but you can also find it probably just by Googling Apple's announcement. They're basically deprecating, they're getting rid of the iAd platform. So there was some confusion early on as to whether or not that meant they were going to leave parts of it, but they were going to only remove the tool, or they were very ambiguous about it, but they came out with an announcement that said, we are in fact doing away with it. So this is a time where you need to go and check out that announcement on the blog, because once they start shutting that down, you're going to need to find a replacement to monetize your apps. So Corona Ads certainly would be an option to check out. And then there's a bunch of other monetization plugins, like we said. One of the ones that I was most impressed with is Media Bricks, because in talking with them directly, they said they sell 95% of their ads. So they basically go to companies and interest them in their platform. So it's not just, they're not just tapping into another network and then getting whatever you get. So as their example on their product page, they have once a user's completed a level, you normally get your sort of congratulations and maybe your 3 stars and some coin action or whatever. And on their example, you get a high five from Sprint, and and so it's really tightly branded, and they're very protective about making sure that they protect the brands for those companies and make sure the apps are high quality and stuff like that. So that was a good one. And then of course Takashi Iota won AppLovin's Apple TV contest. He was a first place winner, won $25,000. And AppLovin has a good platform as well. And they do Apple TV, of course, like I just said, they do Apple TV ads as well. So it's a nice platform. So if you're looking for options now that iAds is sort of going away, this is definitely the time to do it. And banner ads, rewarded gameplay, interstitials, those types of things, are really what you want to move toward. Also, I don't know if you guys saw, there is a interview that I did with Chris Reed. Of course, this was on the recommendation of Laura Talarde, who said I should hook up with Chris and do an interview. We talked for about 50 minutes, and Chris had some excellent things to say. I actually broke those out I posted the whole 50-minute interview, so if somebody wanted to watch it end to end, they could. But I also broke it out into individual clips, because each one of the questions that he answered, he gave in-depth answers to those questions, and they're everything from how do I protect my intellectual property, to how do I handle if a lawyer sends me a cease and desist letter, what kind of contracts do I need if I hire a contractor to work for me and do development work for me. So some great pieces out of that conversation. You can find that, of course, on the blog as well, and we'll have links in the show notes. But you can find Chris on Twitter. He's at NY Game Lawyer. So.
Yeah, Chris has had a couple of meetups in New York City that I've been to. So I actually met and spoken to him. Yeah, he's very knowledgeable.
He's really super sharp. I mean, he was very on point
too, which is very cool. So
yeah,
it just adds to it.
Yeah, and he was very excited about the topics. Very geeky. Very like somebody you could relate to. And he would pull out a term here or there that. Just has an official sort of connotation to it, but then he would break it down in the language that you could really understand, which I thought was great.
Yeah, I listened to those, and I thought that he made it all very approachable, which when you think about lawyer type stuff, you think, it's going to be painful. But he seemed very approachable, and the language that he used to describe and everything was, I thought, really well.
Good. I'm glad that came across that way, because I felt the same way. And we're going to try to get him back on the show, because there were a few questions that didn't get answered just because we ran out of time. We didn't want to go too long. And then I told him, I said, you got to come talk at CoronaCon, because what better place to be than a room full of developers. So he's definitely on board for that. Okay, so the rest of these things are kind of related to Apple's announcements. So let's get into this first by asking Noah, what exactly? I mean, tell us about Chunky Apps a little bit, and then tell us how you use Spine in your workflow and how that relates to meshes.
Okay, Chunky Apps is basically just me, independent developer. I was on here before with City Birds. We've done actually the Corona Hackathon. I was actually, me and my team were winners of that with our football game, which is still going strong on Google, Fantasy Night Football. So Apple, not so much, but the downloads are pretty good on Google. So if anybody wants to check it out, Fantasy Night Football. Also, let me plug Mobile Octopus, which I'm doing. This is mobile apps. Business apps. So I'm trying to use Corona in many different ways, whether it's business, games. I love the games. I also love putting together different businesses. And when I say business apps, I'm talking more about apps for local businesses. So, maybe your local pizza place, put an app, menus, things like that. And a couple of times we've even gotten to put games into it. which is going over very well.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to stop down for just a second. It's mobileoctopus.com, right?
Yes, mobileoctopus.com.
Yeah, yeah. If you guys haven't been there, go check it out. Download the apps and just dissect what Noah's doing, because these are, like I said, not business apps in the sense of like columns and rows and what you might think of as sort of an enterprise app, but it's even more relevant than that because these businesses, these local businesses, are getting the opportunity to get in front of customers in a way that keeps them kind of what I call home screen friendly. Right? They can put the icon on their home screen. They know that they're local, they know the business, and you've made it possible for the people to be able to call in their orders and to see what the current specials are and menu items and things like that. And also, I love that you put the game. There's one I'm thinking of. Was it North Broadway Pizza?
Yes.
Yeah, that one in particular. I like that you put a game in that because that gives you an opportunity to sort of reinforce the brand and bring people back to the app if they.
Yeah, now when we recreated the character of his logo, it's me, Mike A, artist from New York. We teamed up. I met him actually a while ago. He was working on a different app. So the two of us came together and we formed Mobile Octopus. So what we're trying to do is make, if you've seen the apps out there, a lot of them are boring, stiff. They look like probably an HTML mobile website. It's actually what it is, just turned into an app. So when you look at ours, we try to make them a little more fun. And Corona is the perfect thing because you can combine the business part. You can combine a game in there so easy. So, he runs contests every Friday, I think. We reset the score. I actually have Coronium working in that one because I have that's my top 10 score list, and that's running over Google and iOS. So shout out for Coronium for allowing me to do that. Very cool. Yeah, people are very happy with it. We have a car wash one. Check out too. There's a game in that one as well.
It's interesting. You mentioned, sort of these apps that are just sort of aggregation apps, right? There are services out there, there are sites out there that you can, create an app, and all you have to do is plug in your URL to your Facebook and your blog feed and your whatnots, right? And then it'll skin it and give you sort of a templated thing that you can then submit to the stores. And these are like really low value applications because they are in fact sort of just aggregating all your material together, and there's not really a whole lot of additional functionality that you can add to it. I mean, maybe you could add some sort of calculator or some sort of something like that, like a tip calculator or something, but right. But so that's why I say go take a look at Mobile Octopus because you're adding value and being able to bring in these additional elements like social media and stuff like that. And I think it's a good example of how to do it right.
Yeah, thanks. Very interesting, very fun, and I mean the pizza one was great because there was a bigger pizza place down on the corner, and they were using one of those other apps, and now he feels like the big man on campus because now he's got the nice app, compared to these guys. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's it though, right? Isn't it? Everything is an advantage over your competitor, and
exactly.
And if he's able to include a game in his app and bring his customers back to the app over and over again, which then reminds them to, hey, yeah, we should have pizza tonight. Yeah, right. He's got an edge over his competition. So
exactly. Okay. As far as Spine, I have not really included it in my workflow because if you know Spine, it's been out for a while. It was on Kickstarter. I think it was maybe 2 guys, maybe more. They made this animation software, and it's really specifically for 2D games. And the thing about it is, in my opinion, it's just great. I have not put it into any Corona work yet because truthfully I was waiting for the mesh part to work, and I've been beating down the doors as much as I could to try and get that in. Now that it's in, I've seen it on last week's episode or 2 weeks ago, the last episode of Corona. He was showing it off, which I think was very cool how Vlad, thank you to Vlad for getting it working and showing it off. But I think the thing that I would like to get across is for the developers and for some of the artists out there, you know, okay, mesh is in, but what does that mean? You know, why is it cool to have mesh in? So ever since it was put into Corona, now it's working, I've been playing around with it, getting it going. So I have a little bit that I can show off just to hopefully get people excited about Spine and using it in Corona. And that way we can form some sort of community where if there are questions, they're not so hard to go out and get. And your games are going to look so much better. You know, when you see what you can do with Spine, I think everybody will jump on it.
And now you said that Spine had recently updated their software. So how does that affect what you're going to show us today?
It won't affect what I'm going to show you today, but the thing is, they just updated there's two components to Spine. One is the actual Spine application where you go in, you make your animations, and then you export. And then the second component is the runtimes. So you have to get a runtime for your specific engine. So they have a Corona specific runtime. They have Unity, pretty much any game engine that you could think of, they have runtimes for. So unfortunately, when they update the application, you know, there's still people that just use Spine for animation. They could spit it out to video, they could spit it out to PNG. So that goes up first. Now they have to update the runtimes and all that, you know, will take a little bit of time, but, you know, they're saying hopefully a couple of weeks. And, you know, when that's done, things are going to be better than ever. You'll be able to access pretty much everything that Spine has to offer. And I think they just put in animation along paths, you know, a lot of new things that I haven't even gotten a look at. So that's the only effect. Like right now, you could still use it, and you know, I'm still going to show you in Corona everything that pretty much I think is cool, and everything else is just gravy on top of that.
Okay, all right. Well, if you want to go ahead and screen share and show us what you got, that'd be great.
Okay. This is going to be my attempt here. So
yeah. So just one note on the screen share. There's you can usually either share the whole desktop, which will get you the ability to flip back and forth between different windows, or you can share one specific window if you want.
Okay. So I went for the desktop. Did everybody see me on my screen?
Looks good. I don't see you, but we see your desktop.
Good. You don't want to see me. You just look at my screen. You're better off. Okay. So this Spine ships with a few examples. So I wanted to show this one quick because this one was the one that Vlad had on the screen 2 weeks ago. The cool mesh part of this is the tail. So if you check out the tail, and if I show you right here the raptor body, if I just hover over it for a minute, it'll show you this is the image of the raptor body. Okay, so it's just a flat image. It doesn't move. Now with the mesh, you could actually go in and make it so that you put certain bones going along the tail, and now you can literally take an object or an image that was just stiff, and now you can move it. So, you know, whether you have a snake, whether you have a tree, you know, you could think of endless uses that a flag, you know, anything that you want to move or wave. I mean, so it's just a cool, yeah. And then of course you can animate that. You can have it, you know, swinging back and forth. So in order to do that with, I don't even think you could do that with sprite sheets, actually. I'm not sure how you, so it just could give you more fluid animation. Okay, so as I said, Spine does ship with samples, but yeah, I figured that's just not cool enough for what we want to do. So I created my own little.
It is cool, by the way. I mean, I think
it's very cool.
I think if everybody's quiet, it's just because we were like, you know.
Yeah, that one's good, but I haven't heard any gasps yet, so I don't know if I can get the gasp yet. But I did enlist one of a special character to help me with the rest of the demo. So if I can pull it up. There he is.
Oh, nice.
So we have
Charles,
the official Corona.
I like the short childlike body. That's awesome.
Well, that's actually taken from, I think you have on Facebook or Twitter. It is a body shot that I took from. So I didn't invent it, but I did redraw it in Illustrator, bring it into Photoshop and create it.
Awesome.
Okay, so using him and bringing this in Spine, it basically consists of, again, different images. And then what you can do is create animations. So if I go into here, go to my animation, you'll see these are the bones, these triangle type of things, and the images are attached to the bones. So if I start playing the animation, I put together a little walk animation for him. And then, if you want to hide the bones so you can really see, that's all walk animation. So that in itself, I think is cool. You could use that in a game, very cool, but that's not taking advantage of the mesh functionality. So if I go to the walk with the mesh, what I think the coolest thing that you can use mesh for is creating a 3D-like effect. If you look at his head, now it looks like it's turning toward and away from you.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's got like a little bit of a head tilt every time.
Right, and all that is done is just by taking the mesh, and basically when you make a mesh, you put these lines, you put different vertices all throughout wherever you want to put them. And what you can do is set a keyframe. So I have the first keyframe, the last keyframe are exactly the same. I set the middle keyframe just by pulling out some vertices.
So you're literally warping the image, so to speak.
Right.
Oh, look at that.
So go back, and now you got this cool 3D effect in a 2D game.
That is awesome.
It's also happening with his shirt. If you can't see it as much, but sometimes it's nice to just have a nice subtle look. But the logo itself. Yeah,
I think it's just like anything. When it's there, you probably don't notice it. But when it's not there, that's when you have maybe something you can't maybe not even put words to it. Right? You can just say like, it just doesn't feel natural.
Right. So to me, this. I've seen examples. I've seen this used on a few different, whether I don't know if I've seen them in many games, but I've seen them in different animations. And you could get really cool effects. There was a Take 10 animation, I believe. They had tutorials about this also, where I purchased a couple just to check them out, and they really go nuts. I mean, I'm just doing it on the head, but they literally do it on the entire body of the character, and it just looks really, really awesome.
Now, on his arm swing and all that kind of stuff, those aren't separate images, right? That's still just a single
separate images. If I go back into setup,
I'm sorry. I mean, they're broken up into segments, but it's still okay. Yes. So you're not bending a particular one single image.
No, you could. I've seen actually in the tutorial that I mentioned, they have. Like on here, I have legs and pieces, but they have one leg, and they run a mesh. They put mesh down the entire thing, run bones through it, and they bend it that way.
Interesting.
So, it definitely takes skill to do. So it takes some practice to do. I'll have to look at it, but if you bend it to a certain point, it's just stretching the image, so it starts to look. It makes this weird bend once you reach a certain point where it probably doesn't work. But I think it depends on how your character is created.
So you say that they're still working on updating the runtime. So at this point, what would you be able to do with this?
Well, you can use this now because of the work that Vlad has done. He fixed the runtime and I think they even in their samples in the runtime that they have right now, the mesh does work. It's just that I think version 3.2 or something. Like if you use the latest version of Spine, when you hit export, for some reason it broke that functionality. So I had to rewind one, reboot, go to like the one version before that, and it works again. So you can use this. It's just that I think I'm using version 3.2. It's the second to last one to export it. And then, of course, it's I think you get by with the runtime. They have a runtimes folder. I think it's on their GitHub with the runtimes, and the sample that I'm using in Corona is using their sample.
Now, let me ask you a really important question. You didn't happen to make a breakdancing animation for this, did you?
Oh, that would have been good. I have a few, but I didn't do breakdancing. Maybe that'll come up soon. We do have a run. So we have a run. Of course, like we have an idle.
Nice. Yeah, that's the part. That's that moment when you just know that I'm about to pounce. Right?
Exactly. And this one, I just keep this in your mind for later, because this one I want to show you as a cool effect. This is what what I called aim. But right now, of course, he's not aiming anything. So, and it's only his arm is moving. So I just before I move on to the Corona,
rock paper scissors.
Rock paper scissors. Before I move on to the Corona part, I did just want to show you now the reason that spine, besides mesh, another reason that spine is awesome is that this is built as a skeleton, right? So basically it goes into Corona as these pieces or as a texture atlas, and it's just moving these pieces according to the coding of each individual keyframe. So what that means is if if we look at the walk cycle, and usually what people will do is at least what I do, I'll spit out a bunch of PNGs, make a sprite sheet, and you got something that looks like this. And this is 2048 by 2048 high res, but it's only one walk. So think about, I had a run, I had a jump. You're talking about a lot of different sprite sheets that you're going to have to come up with. All this starts taking up memory. Whereas the spine, it's just using, I as far as computational, I don't think it makes a difference as long as it's not too many characters. And as far as, memory, now you're talking about just the images that are put together to make this character up rather than all these different spine sheets. So, to me, that's a huge benefit as far as saving space.
Nice. So I was thinking as you were, I said rock, paper, scissors earlier. I was thinking if you had two characters that were across from each other, so imagine that character duplicated, flipped. Right? But then you don't use rock, paper, scissors because that would be, you could play that a couple of times and you'd be like, yeah, okay. But maybe there's like flamethrower and knife and pistol, and each character has to, and a shield and
there you go.
And then based on what you choose, there's cause and effect for each, right? So one beats the other, and so on and so forth. I think that would be hilarious.
Have to put that together. Okay, so now this is into Corona. So here, this is just a runtime. Basically, what are we looking at? Just one main Lua file, and it's 115 lines long. And the part that's spine related is all of this. I just took right from the runtime. It's just requires spine, creates the skeleton. These are in there now, but they may be put into another file. I'm not sure how they do it, but that creates the image, that creates the mesh. This sets up the pose, and you got your guy walking. So,
hey, will you bump up your font size for us?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I think you have a pretty high resolution screen.
Yeah. Can you see the phone, or should I make that bigger too? Is that better?
No, I can see the phone. The code is really, really small.
Even still? Even now?
Yeah, even still. You guys tell me when you think it's comfortable.
There's a new iMac, boy.
I'm fine.
Does that work? Okay. It's definitely more readable now.
Okay. We're good? One more time, or are we good?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. So another cool thing about Spine now, I have these animations. Very cool thing is skinning. So you could basically take the same skeleton that you have walking, and let me find my skin. Oh, I put it up here. Okay, so I created a second set of images where we now have our superhero.
Oh, that's the new icon for the show,
There
right?
you go. So we have what, Captain Corona, I guess. I don't know, but now
My favorite part is he still has a little bit of a pot belly, sort of rounded body, which is kind of cool.
Okay, so this, of course, if you had all these images and now you wanted to do another skin for a character, let's say you got to a certain point in your game and you acquired the suit, you'd have to now double your amount of sprite sheets in order to do this outside of using Spine, where in here, it's all using the same data. It's just using a 1 second set of images. So basically one more sheet, I guess, as opposed to, doubling the amount on everything.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that, in one line of code, you change the whole feel of the character.
And actually, this is the part, I couldn't get it working in the new one, but there's actually a skin feature. What I'm doing here is actually changing the folder. Right now, it's calling the hero folder, where I have my images. So it's not truly using the skinning feature that they have, because I couldn't get that to work, but I'm sure, after the new runtimes come in, the skinning feature will work. Basically, the skinning feature was work, but the mesh wasn't working with it. So I had to go that route. The other part that I added in the in Spine, which I'm going to show here now, if you wanted to equip this character, basically one line of code, and I could give him his weapon, which is his super soaker, water gun, whatever you want to call it. So just to show you basically what's going on there is inside of Spine, in my setup, he's got an empty hand right now, but I have these are called slots. So you have a hand slot, you have what I call the soaker slot. And on that particular slot, I can show an image or not show it. So if I had clicked on this to show it, it would have imported directly into Corona showing that image. If I hide it, then it gives me the ability to, and I'm sure you can hide it once in there, but what I did is hide it before I exported into Corona, and now basically I can show it and just think, if I had the time, I would have created a few different weapons or things for him to hold, and you basically just pick which one that you want him to hold, and he's carrying it. So now, this is just attached to the skeleton as well. There's no different sprite sheets. There's no, if I want to change the, let's see. So over here, this is the code that's used to set the animation. So right now I have set animation and I have the walk. So all I have to do to change that, I can have the idle. I could have the run. So basically what this is, in this code, it's set animation by name. This 0 is a track. So they have different animations on different tracks. This is the name of the animation. This is whether it loops or not, and I think that this is a delay. So basically, the track thing, I think, could be the coolest part. Although everything that you've seen right now, I think is very cool. Now, I think this even takes it to another level using tracks, because now I have an animation playing on track 0. But if you remember what I showed you in Spine, I have an animation, and I called it aim. And what that animation is doing is just moving his arm. So the only thing that's keyframed is his arm, nothing else. That's the key, because what happens now is if I turn that animation on, but I put it on a different track, I put it on track 1, it's going to overtake the run animation, but it's only going to affect what I actually keyframe.
Oh, wow.
So now can you imagine, I mean, that would be a whole nother set of sprite sheets where now it's just affecting that one. And that could be, Now I can have him, running with it. Yeah, that looks a little weird, but the idle, it was made for when he's moving. So basically, if he's walking, a little bounce to it.
This answers a question that was asked in the forums last week, by the way. Somebody said, how can I play two spine animations at the same time?
Yeah, that was me. that was my question. And actually, Reaver was the one that answered that, and he had figured it out. So this wasn't working. I was getting an error when I was doing this. And
I'm sorry I didn't answer. I knew the answer, and I didn't answer. I apologize.
Well, it did require me to go in and update one of the files that was in the runtime.
Uh-huh.
So you actually would have to go and, they're going to update the runtimes within the next couple of weeks, they promise. So this will all be working. But right now it was me piecing together a few different things to get it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes, like this used to work just fine, what you've just done with no changes to the runtime. But then obviously they changed something and then it stopped working. So
yeah, and now whatever they just changed, the mesh doesn't even work.
Yeah.
So, that is the one thing.
But it's not like it's complicated or anything.
No, believe me, if I could get there, I'm not, I don't consider myself on the coding level of mostly everybody on this panel here. So I'm more of an artist. So if I could figure it out, trust me, just by asking the questions, and, looking at what the answers bring you, you definitely can figure it out.
This is a great example, though. I really like it, especially this combination of the two. Takes it to a whole new level as far as like people go, oh yeah, you're right. That's like 4 times as many sprite sheets.
Right, exactly. Right. And the other thing is if you were to play a sprite-based animation, this was mentioned last show also, if you wanted to go slow motion, basically a sprite sheet, you couldn't do it because it would just be choppy. With this, it's actually interpolating between the frames no matter what. So
yeah,
you want to go slow-mo.
So when he does some sort of epic jump, a cavern jump or something, he could go, whoa.
Exactly.
Charles is loving this whole episode.
I am.
So the last thing that I have to show is events, which is now if I go into Sprite Spine, and this is called events. So basically on this one, they have an example where it's on the walk. Every time you take a step, they have a walk event. On mine, I put on a jump event, I made landed. So what this will do, it's going to play his jump. And then right here is the keyframe where I put event landed. That'll spit out that event into Corona. Now, normally, if you're doing like a walk event, you could do, play a sound effect maybe for him walking. In my case, I made a button where if you press it, it jumps. So if I press this right here, I have on jump, set animation by name, jump 2. So what that does is it takes over the same track that was playing the run. It's going to play the jump. But if I just left it at that, he would jump and then it would be the end of the animation. So what I do then is I listen for the event landed. And when I get that event, I'll go back to play. Actually, I have a player state that right now I have the player state where the player state equals, where does the player state equal? It's in here somewhere.
In a nutshell, you're letting it go back to whatever animation it was at previously?
Exactly. So if I jump, he's going to go back to the run.
And because that's an event, I mean, you can take any kind of action you want off of that, right? I mean, for example, like Ed, I'm thinking particularly a long time ago, you showed us how to put a foot onto a character so that when it collided with the ground, then we could tell when it's in the air or when it's not, when it's on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the same kind of principle? I mean,
that's more about sensing where you are or what's going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could still do something with it. I was thinking more like screen shake or like
Yep.
you'd said earlier, a sound effect for the
It's basically just a marker. So whatever you want to do. I mean, it goes into Corona as a marker. So if it's part of in your animation where you want something to happen, it just sends it through, and then it's on Corona coding to figure out what you want to do with it.
Okay, so it's not really about collision detection in that sense. It's more just about, hey, this event has occurred, so then do something else if you want to.
What it is, to me, is a solution to a very hard problem, which is where you're doing something and you've got an animation and the timing varies device to device, but you want to synchronize some other event. So like his head gets to a certain position or he claps his hands, you know. Now it's no problem. No matter how it plays, it always synchronizes.
Exactly. Even if you go into slow motion, it's still going to hit that keyframe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So like, I don't know if I'm still audio here, but people who want to make storybooks and stuff, this is a super problem because they're like, they want to align, say, changing the text with some animation event or something like that. It's super hard if they're doing it off of sprite sheets. They got to go measure how long it took to get to that frame. But here, just make an event, boom, done.
Gotcha.
Now, can you make each part of his body a physics body?
Yeah, you can. I was actually looking. I don't know how to do it. I'm hoping that either I could figure out or someone could come on and show me, because you can actually make a bounding box inside of Spine and send it through, but I just couldn't find the code and I don't know how to read that bounding box. I don't know if Ed has any.
You can make custom bounding boxes for the body parts, and you can make them individually touchable.
How about, and physics? You could put physics on them, right?
Yeah, you can do quite a number of things with the body parts.
Yeah, because I would love to see either Ed or I think Mike from Pony Wolf uses Spine as well. I think that's...
Yeah, I think Mike knows how to do that.
On these guys.
Yeah.
Reading, you know, you could read the shapes that come through. You know, because once you have the physics, you got the game, you know.
Yeah. I did an experiment once where you put touch sensors on the body parts, and then depending on what part you touched, it would play different animations.
Yeah, that's cool. There is, I think Spine Boy is one of the examples they have where the head is used as a touch event, but it's really only checking to see if you touch within the coordinates. So I tried to select that. I think I tried to select the slot maybe, and it wasn't something I could put physics on. I think my problem was I couldn't figure out what am I actually adding the physics shape to. I couldn't locate the bounding box once I brought it in.
Right. Finding the parts in the spine skeleton or the setup is sometimes kind of tricky.
Yeah.
Not knowing it. Not having written it yourself, you're like, I don't know where that is.
Exactly. So that's my hope. I figure if I could get enough people using it and, you know, maybe it'll just become easier for everyone to jump in.
Well, I tell you what, there was a transitional period in web development where everybody, you know, in the early days used tables for everything, right? They had any time that you wanted to lay out an image or you wanted to do just about anything, you used a table for it. And then there was this period where people started moving towards managing things with, you know, applying CSS to HTML elements so that you could say, okay, this is a div, but this div is only like this wide and this high, and they started laying things out like that. And there was just some people were like, well, I just know how to do it in tables. It's so much easier to do in tables. But then there were these benefits to doing it in CSS that were just sort of overwhelming. And that was really the direction that everything was headed. And so for this, I mean, it reminds me of this exactly. It seems like if I'm just going to do a simple animation, and maybe I don't want to, you know, rig a character and do all the other stuff like that, I could probably just do a sprite sheet. But the benefits of doing it, of getting accustomed to doing it in Spine, especially if I was going to do a more in-depth character or more in-depth series of animations, seems like it has huge benefits. So,
yeah, but, you know, unless you're doing frame-by-frame animation. I mean, when I did my animation for City Birds, I was doing it inside of Flash. Basically, the user interface inside of Spine is so easy. It's like any animation software that you've probably used, whether it's, you know, Flash, you know, you name it. It's got the timeline. You set your keyframes. To me, you know, it's almost like, you know, if you were going to do it in Flash anyway, why not just do it in Spine, and then you already got the benefits. The only time I agree is if you're you know, if you're going to do frame-based animation or, you know, something like that, where you can't just build a skeleton. But I mean, I've seen people even do this for, it's not even just a character. It could be an effect, and they actually do some frame by frame on here. They have one example that's an interface for a title screen, which there's no characters, just the things animating on. I guess it just makes it that much easier to animate it.
So you're saying that even if you were just tempted to just do it as a sprite sheet, you could say, okay, well, I'm just going to do it in Spine anyway, just to kind of maybe just be like, that's just your go-to workflow.
Yeah, I found it like, you know, I did the walk animation, and then I needed another animation, so I did the run animation. So then at that point, you know, it was the weekend or whatever, and I was like, you know what, I'd like to practice an idle animation. Now I already have the character rigged, so now it's just me going on there and messing around, and oh, that's cool. Okay, now I have an idle animation, and you know, at the end of the day, I didn't have to make sprite sheets. It's just, you know, I exported it again, and now I have that animation. So to me, it's just so much easier to, you know, granted, you have to have some skill as far as animating, but you know, I'm not trained as far as going to school. You know, I've read a lot of animation books and things like that, but basically if you get, you know, Richard Williams Animator Survival Kit or something like that and check out a walk cycle, you can put it together. And, you know, having that skeleton, I think what I want to do now is learn more how to put the character together, because that's kind of like an art in itself. How do you cut up the arm so that when it bends, you don't see the elbow, or you do see the elbow, you know, things like that. It becomes a different set of problems where it's more about the character construction to make it look like it doesn't look like a puppet.
Yeah, I know. I know exactly what you're talking about, because I have that same book.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I have that same book that you're talking about, and you know, once you understand the concept of the walk cycle, you can apply that over and over again. But each character is unique because of their clothing or what action they're going to be taking, or you know, or whatever. So it's not a, you know, it's not, that's not a particularly a copy paste sort of action. You have to finesse each character.
But what could be, I think there's a game that's in development. It's called Wolverblade, Wulver Blade, and it's going up on Steam, I think Xbox. But the artwork is beautiful, and they're using Spine. So, you know, one of the things that they're doing that I see is if, you know, you have an enemy, if you have one enemy, you basically have as many enemies as the skins you want to draw, because, you know, draw a beard. Now you have an enemy with a beard, and it becomes you just put it on that skeleton. You know, you could reuse these skeletons and you could have a bunch of different characters real easy. You just change it, you know, change an arm. You don't have to change everything at once. You could just, you know, like I put the gun in his hand, you know, you could put a shield in his hand, you could put a sword in his hand, you could change the hair. So you can create an endless amount of characters, and there's really it's just not the hit of doing all these different sprite sheets.
Well, this is a great example. I love this, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they come out with when you know, when everything, as you say, all the changes are in place. Because I think messing with meshes will be a lot of fun. So we can still see your desktop, just by the way, just so you know.
Okay, is that it?
That's gone. Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you for that. I think that's a great example. It certainly is fun to see the differences. And so I think we're kind of almost out of time. You guys want to talk about WWDC real quick?
Well, I want to mention real quick that I've been posting a series of videos to YouTube on learning to use the Lua programming language. It's specifically geared around Lua, not Corona, but it provides a lot of foundation that if, you know, I wish I'd had that material when I got started with Corona. It would have made my development in Corona so much faster if I had just had some resources like this. It wasn't until years later that I got into the Lua scripting language as opposed to Corona. So those are available. They're on YouTube called Learning Lua, and I've got 11 so far. I'm probably going to do another 9 or 10 of them to cover all the different libraries that are default as part of the Lua language.
Yeah, I'm glad you're putting those together. One of the things that we get from people when they first registered for Corona and they get started is they realize that, oh, it's written in Lua. You write your code in Lua, and they're like, oh, well, I don't know Lua. And of course, you don't need to know Lua in that, a lot of people like to go out and buy the book and have it on the shelf and that sort of thing. And then rarely opening it.
It's on the shelf, yeah.
Right, it sits on the shelf. So your videos are hitting that spot that says, okay, look, here's what you need to know in order to get going. Yeah, there's the book, right? Which is a great resource. It's a good thing to have. But I think we've all done that where we buy the book with great intentions of going deep into the knowledge of the language, and then we only really finish chapter 1.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think it's a great that you put these together. It helps people get up and comfortable. I think once people see they're like, oh, I can do that, right? Then the rest of it is, just digging into the API for Corona and understanding the different pieces and parts there. But
right.
But they still.
But this will give you a good foundation of how to use the if-then, while loops, repeats, the fundamentals of the language, and the built-in libraries of Lua, as opposed to the built-in resources that come with Corona. So I think it gives a clearer understanding of where you're going with the programming if you understand the Lua language as you're going into it. And it is linked from the Corona website, and I appreciate that very much, on the new step-by-step guides that are going up, which I'm working on that as well. So those will be more guides are coming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of the things that has occurred is that we created videos for Corona University, and we created over time we've created tutorials, and there have been there's always the docs have always been there, and they're rock solid. But in trying to put together these learning resources, some of that stuff can get a little long in the tooth. So we're having to go back and pull some of those things, and hopefully putting together this step-by-step guide will be a whole lot more helpful for someone who's just now getting started. Unfortunately, most of the people here on this panel have the curse of knowledge. You guys are in the forums all the time, and you know that where everything's located in the docs, and you've seen all the tutorials and stuff. And so,
and we've been doing this for 5-10 years, and it sometimes you got to go back to the basics.
Well, it's been real informative to get these feedback from new registrants, because people are like, they tell you exactly what their pain points are. So
I'd also just like to say that I think I've been doing this for, 3-4 years, but I came from web design background, and I knew, basically some HTML, some ActionScript, I think one. And basically I learned how to do Corona by using Brian's book. So, there's an endorsement for him, but it's also
which are being updated.
Great, yeah. And you know what? Anybody who's watching this who hasn't used it, who thinks that it's difficult, it's really not. He breaks it down, and to me, that book, I actually bought the Lua book, and like you said, I never opened it, but I did open Brian's book, and it's very good. I would definitely recommend it because it got me going quick.
Yeah, I think the big thing I think the big differentiator there is Brian's book is project oriented. It says, hey, here's the concept, and now let's apply that. And whereas when you read a programming book, you're kind of like, here are all the concepts, and then let's go to chapter 2, and here's some more concepts.
Right. And you're never going to learn until you build the project. Once you build the project, that's when you're going to learn.
Right. Yeah. You got to write the code. Yeah. How do you learn to code? You write the code.
Right. and there's something magical that happens with a lot of people just read through. Oh, look, there's a programming example. Okay, I understand how that works. But actually typing code in and making the mistakes, going back and debugging it, finding where you made your typo, fixing that, and then running it increases the learning that happens dramatically. It's an exponential difference between what you take away from doing that. So if anybody is working through the examples or through my book or anything like that, I encourage you, type it in. Don't just download the sample files and run it. Go through and type it in, work it out, and it's well worth that time investment to do that.
Yeah.
And also all the tutorials that Ed does on these shows, I think are so valuable.
Yes.
While we're giving out the kudos,
yes,
big kudos to Ed, because I wouldn't.
Whenever I get stuck, Ed's the first person I contact.
Yeah, just to see the way that you can do the code. I mean, I went.
Yes.
The code I had before and the code after that I have now is just so much more usable and readable thanks to those things.
Awesome.
There's a pat on the back.
Yeah, there you go. Give him a virtual pat on the back. Awesome. Well, hey, we're definitely out of time, so I'm going to put links in the show notes to the things for WWDC. I do want to say that search ads are a big thing. If you guys haven't already, I did put a link in the Slack channel. Go take a look at that.
Yes.
Watch the video. I have several notes. The short version is that it's kind of like Google AdWords in that you can run campaigns, you can control what keywords you want to use and things like that. But the high level bit is that they're only going to show ads to users who have not installed your app. But you can still target those people if you want to. They're going to also not show ads to people who don't respond to an ad. So if your app is being pushed and then somebody doesn't respond to that ad over whatever period of time or whatever, then they'll drop it out and then they'll show somebody else. So I think there's going to be a little bit of concern for developers as people see it as a way to, just to pay your way to the top. But if they add in some intelligence to the system and make it user specific and try to do their best to push the most relevant apps to people, I think it'll actually turn out to be a good thing. It's definitely going to be interesting. I think it's going to be one of those almost like AdWords changed a lot for web advertising. I think it's going to change a lot, at least in the Apple ecosystem. It's going to change a lot. So go take a look at that, and we will talk about this on another show. But I just wanted to say we'll have links in the show notes. All right. Well, Noah, thank you for that excellent example. I will email you. I want to talk to you about putting together a Corona Geek game.
I was going to talk. We're on the same wavelength. Don't worry.
Super.
Yeah, that character is there for you to do whatever you'd like to do. He's my contribution to the Corona Geek show. So whatever you guys want to do with him.
I think that would be hilarious.
That'd be cool. Actually, to have a series of different genres with Corona Geek.
What I could do is put it on GitHub, and then anyone could just play.
Oh, sweet.
That'd be great.
That would be cool. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to do a demo with that. So yeah, if you could share
that.
that.
If I could get my cousin-in-law to show me how to use GitHub, where I can actually put it on, because I can pull things off, but I can't put stuff on. So as soon as I learn that, I'll have it up.
All right. We'll work that out. All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. This has been a great show. We will have links in the show notes, and we will be back here. You know what? I don't know. I don't want to say when we'll be back here. Normally, I'd say we'll be back in 2 weeks. But there are a lot of events coming up. We're going to Pocket Gamer in Vancouver next week. We're going to LuaConf in Brazil the week after. And then we're going to Casual Connect in San Francisco the week after that. So
I'm sorry, you're going to Brazil?
Yeah, at some point. Yeah. I know. But yeah, and then we have July 4th in there as well. So it's going to be a full schedule. So we may not be back for at least a month. I don't know, but I will be doing as much live streaming from those events as possible. And so anyway, so I'll send out an announcement the next time that we're all going to get together, and we'll just go from there. All right.
I don't know why, but when I think of you going to Brazil, I see you with these feather fans on your head. Something. You got to give us get your Brazil on. That's right.
That's my next animation for.
That's it. With big flamingo feathers. All right, guys. Have a great week and happy coding.